So my project was about how different metal containers can cause the pH of water to change. So the basis of this project was an ancient Indian science called Ayurveda. And in that science, there is a lot of talk about how storing water in different kinds of metal vessels can actually change the pH of the water in that it makes it more basic or it increases the pH. And so I decided that I would try to test this, and the way that you would have a higher or lower pH is a higher pH would come from a higher concentration of hydroxide ions, whereas a higher concentration of hydrogen ions would actually cause the pH of that substance to be lower. So copper, silver, and zinc is one of the main components of brass, are all very low on the reactivity series, which is a series that determines the reactivity of metals in comparison to each other. So copper, silver, and brass were all like very widely used vessels. So if you were to store water in there, in perfect conditions, there probably should not be any increase or decrease in the pH of water. However, in my experiment, would not have sealed containers, so they would probably be exposed to atmospheric carbon dioxide, which is a main reason for acidity in water. Now, aluminum and stainless steel, they actually have reactions with water. So these reactions actually cause them to form hydroxide ions, which, like I said previously, can increase the pH of water. And so they would probably leach into the water, which causes the water to increase. Now, the hypothesis that I formed from this was that if water is stored in a copper, brass, or silver container, the pH of the water will decrease. But if water is stored in like a stainless steel or aluminum container, its pH will increase. I don't know that I made it like clear before, but the different types of containers that I would be testing are a brass container, a copper one, a stainless steel one, silver one, and an aluminum vessel. And I also just used a glass cup as a control group. So this is an aluminum container, this one's silver, this is copper, this is brass, this is aluminum, or sorry, stainless steel, and that's glass. And so I just measured 1 cup of water, and I placed 1 cup of water in each of these containers, and I kept it there for 10 days. And every single day I checked the pH of water to see how it changed. And so you can see from this data that the pH of the water in the stainless steel and the aluminum containers, as I had predicted, actually increased. However, the pH of the water in the copper, aluminum, and brass containers actually decreased. And the main reason for this was explained in the background research, so I'm not going to go too in depth into that. But like as a final observation, the hypothesis that I created did seem to be mostly correct. I think the only thing that I would change is that I kind of implied that copper, brass, and silver vessels would all cause the pH of water to decrease, which just is not true. It doesn't have any reaction with water that would cause that, and it's the carbon dioxide that caused it. And since I didn't have like any seal for any of the vessels, that's why the water's pH decreased so much. And since the containers and the lids were all different shapes, that could have also caused a disparity in like the amount of carbon dioxide leached into the water. Now, just for some practical use, there's like little to no practical use for any of these. Now, a lot of these can actually cause health problems, like aluminum. There was some small white substance or like specks that appeared in the water, and that's probably not a risk that you want to take drinking that water. And also, if you leave a like water sample in a copper container for too long and then you drink it, it can actually lead to dizziness, nausea, and vomiting because too much copper would be leached into that. And I think if you are to use any of them, you should probably use stainless steel because there's no significant changes in the water quality except for the pH, which did increase. So I think that's probably one that you should definitely use. And that wraps it up, and here's my works cited. Thank you.